I'm really trying to spice up the background lighting, so it's a little bit different today, but we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about one thing only, and that is the Leica Q3 43. Let me kind of bring this in so you can kind of see it. It's pretty pretty, you know? But I've literally been waiting to rent this camera since it came out, because if you don't know anything about the Leica Q3s, the Q3 or the Q series is a Leica's fixed lens cameras. They're usually 28 millimeters, but this one was a little bit unique. This one's a 43 millimeter, hence the name Leica Q3 43. But like I said, I've been waiting for a very long time to rent this camera. It's always been unavailable, and somehow with my trip to San Francisco and this camera being available, it was like the stars aligned. So I was like, hey, I gotta pull the trigger. I gotta rent this because I really want to know, I guess, the fuss about this camera. I really want to know the fuss about this camera, because my only experience with Leica cameras are with their film cameras. I know that's very like bad of me, but it's also because I love their film cameras. I mean, I own an M6, and I've never even touched the MPs and the M11s, which are also a digital camera. So I'm just kind of like lacking it here. So I thought, hey, let me do this right by doing one of the Q series, because if you ask anyone, the Leica models that get very well recognized are either the M6s or the Q series, especially this one, because when this one came out, everybody was really excited for it, mainly because it is a Q3, but it's a Q3 with a 43 millimeter focal length, which a lot of people are like, that kind of is almost the ideal focal length for a lot of the work they're doing and a lot of things that they can see that are endlessly possible with this camera. So I really want to do a deep dive review. I didn't bring any cameras with me besides my Osmo Pocket. I didn't bring any film. I didn't bring my 7R5 because I really wanted just to focus on those cameras, see what's the fuss about it, and then also see what if there's like things I just was like, they could do better on this one. So with that being said, let's hop right into it. Let's talk about specs. I don't want to spend too much time with it, but let's get right into specs. So obviously I said the Leica Q3 43 is a 43 millimeter focal length. It's not their standard 28, but the 43 is a very good down the middle, not a 50 and not a 35, but it's right there where it's a good focal length. Just the best way I can say it. It uses the Apple Summicron lens, so it's extremely sharp. The colors are amazing. You barely get any chromatic aberration or any fringing, so that's what these lenses are known for. That's why also they're very expensive. So that's right from the beginning. It's perfect. The Leica is a full frame 61 megapixel sensor, and that's pretty sharp. The only camera I have that is similar to that is my 7R Mark V, and all the images I get from there are extremely sharp. Even when you crop down, it's crazy beautiful. The fixed lens is the max aperture is the f2, the minimum is the f16, so like you're like kind of limited in very bright situations, but also at the same time, I myself don't personally go past f8. I don't find myself at f16 at all, so I really don't care as much for that. Video specs, I don't want to dive into it because this camera is it's a photo camera first. It's not a video camera. I think anyone who's ever bought this camera has never recorded videos on it, so it's like I said, it's not a video camera, but it does 4K. In 422 10-bit, and then it does 8K and 420 8-bit, I believe. I didn't really dive much into the video specs because there are certain things like most cameras where like you can do 8K at this bit rate if you do it this way. So there's a very extensive like review about the videos if you go on B&H's website or Leica's website to see very extensive about it. The LCD screen is a 1.8 million dot. So it's pretty okay. I feel like it could do better, especially because the viewfinder is 5.7 million dots. So I feel like I relied a lot on the viewfinder than I did on the LCD screen, which is okay because like I prefer using the viewfinder. The only time I'm okay not using the viewfinder is if I'm filming on my FX3 or any other video camera. And yeah, that's pretty much the specs I want to go over on this camera. Taking the camera on my trip, I captured a lot of amazing shots. I felt like it was just one of those things where like every shot had its own character. And what's cool about this is that the Leica's series, the Q series, have their Leica colors. It's similar to Fujifilm's like film simulations. It's kind of like that, but you only get like what Leica creates, I guess you would say, where Fujifilm, you get the set of recipes, and then you can go on like an app and then make simple adjustments to get a certain like look or something like that. But yeah, you get Leica colors on here, or Leica looks, I would say. And what's cool is that like having a 61 megapixel sensor and you want to use those Leica colors, you have to only use it on JPEG. So when you take that photo, it's embedded in that JPEG, but even those JPEG images are completely, like they're so sharp. Like I'm shocked by it. But then yet again, that is what a 61 megapixel sensor is really meant for, is for high resolution. I haven't seen the RAW files yet because I've only been looking at the JPEGs because I've been transferring them from my phone, seeing how they look. So I consume, even on the RAW files, they are pretty sharp. So like, yeah, like I said, even on JPEGs, they're very sharp. So this kind of leads into what I really loved about this camera. For starters, I already mentioned it is a fixed lens. The 43mm focal length is, for me, I think is just ideal. It gives it like a very everyday feel camera, although like I wouldn't say it's an everyday camera, because if you were to look up the price, you would understand that it's not an everyday camera you can just easily buy. I do love the simple button layout that's in the back, compared to some cameras where you have just extremely numerous amounts of buttons. This is very simple, very straight to the point. You get 2 function buttons. You get a center dial to go through the menu or just any of your functions. You get your play button, your menu button, and then that's about it. I'm also looking at my notes, by the way, if you're just kind of wondering what the hell I'm doing. The focus ring on it is really cool. If I kind of show you, it reminds me of the Leica M6, where it has that thumb where you can kind of just, focus in and out, or sorry, like focus, defocus. I don't know what's the correct term to use right now. But I like that. It reminds me of the M6 series. It reminds me of a lot of the M series. I think it's really cool. I do love, because this is a 61 megapixel sensor, you're not just limited to a 43mm, but you're limited to, or not limited, you can change the crop setting to it. And I think the max is like 150, but you can go into like, I think like a 50, 65, 90 and all that, which is really cool. I think so. But of course, there's a setback when you do those crop features. You do lose a few megapixels. And I think if you go to the max, that megapixel for that size, or that size image, is 15.3, I think. So if you're okay with low resolution, that's fine. But I really didn't dive into that much, or I didn't go into the max. I really kind of only pushed it once to get into the next focal length, which I think is a 50. I could be wrong. Editor me, correct that below. What is when you press it first, what is the first focal length it changes to? So which is really cool. I think I love using the Super 35 on my camera, or to crop it down so I can get a little more of a little oomph to the focal length. I did mention this already, the Leica color profiles, or the Leica looks, they're very cool. They give each image a character. The Leica Eternal, which is one of my favorites, I think it really made shooting photos at night very it felt good. It felt like this is what a night photo should look like, and I didn't have to do much editing. I have the photos I'm sharing in this video, I didn't even edit at all. The Leica Brass is also another phenomenal, famous look that just came out recently. And I think it also kind of gives a very vintagey, very filmy look that I think people who love film photography would like to use that all the time. They have all the other standard ones, like standard, vivid, monochrome, contrast. But I really only use Brass and Eternal, and I think a few times contemporary. But these Leica looks are really cool because, like I said, it gives these images a unique characteristic that you're kind of find yourself being like, yeah, that's super cool. And you don't have to do much work at like editing, which I liked. So I used a lot of those. Like I said, I really haven't dived into the RAW files yet, which I should, because I want to see what I can do with that image. But like I said, the Leica looks, the Leica colors are phenomenal. Especially these cameras are very well known for their color profiles because they're very sharp. The colors are very vibrant. There's not really a lot of contrast, so it's very subtle. And then it also is very, what's the word I'm looking for? It's not flat. I've noticed some images when you take it, it's not really flat, which is really cool. I do like the fact that you get 2 dials on this camera, so it kind of goes into that minimalistic kind of vibe where everything's very simple, very not run down, but very get to the point. So you have your shutter speed dial, which is right here. You have this one, which gives into increments from 1 to 2000, And then you have this other shutter speed dial on the side, which is considered your thumb dial. This one you can do micro adjustments up and down. And if you actually push down, you can actually change it to the ISO setting. So I think that was really cool because it kind of like, it allows your thumb to pretty much be the main control of that entire camera. And like I said, it gives that very minimalistic kind of vibe. Now on the topic of, you know, of that speed out, that is also one of the things that I didn't like about this camera, is that the shutter speed dial, for someone who has no experience with these kind of cameras, or someone who has like, I guess, minimal experience with film cameras, because you kind of usually, I feel like that's what they did. Usually it's just kind of set your ISO and just adjust your shutter speed as much as you can. Having only 2 dials where both are shutter speeds and then you have to tap to switch to ISO, I think for some people that might be like off-putting for them, especially if they come from like a standard camera series where they have 3 dials. Like my 7R5, I have 3 dials, one's shutter speed, one is ISO, one's aperture. So I can kind of see people really like step back from it and be like, oh, I don't know if I like that. I think they kind of replicate this from the M series, like the film series, where you really just set your ISO and then just adjust your shutter speed whenever you can. That's what I did actually, just it made it easier, where I just set my ISO to 400 or 200, and then I just kind of adjusted the shutter speed whenever I need to. But like I said, I can see where people are kind of like, oof, that's not what they like. So it does take a while to get used to. I will say that although I do love the manual focus ring here on here, if you want to switch it to autofocus, you have to bring it all the way to the right, and there's a tiny little button here where you have to push and it clicks it in. It clicks into autofocus. And I know for some people they're used to just a simple button that says manual or autofocus or in the menu system. So I know this might be also like another thing that people are like, ugh, I don't really like it, but like I said, I understand. Lastly, the one thing I didn't like is that the intelligent autofocus on here is good, but it's not good enough, if that makes sense. So what I've noticed is that when I was trying to take a photo with the intelligent autofocus, I noticed that the focus bracket would always move around because it doesn't know what I'm trying to focus. And when I put, subject recognition and you have a certain item that I want to focus on, I noticed that it would focus on it and then it would just like unfocus. So it was kind of finicky, which I was kind of like, okay. So I ended up just switching to like a point focus where I adjust the focus box manually with my thumb or do the touchscreen. So I kind of noticed that was the one thing. It does correct itself, but I will say, if on the intelligent focus, I noticed that when it does fail, it will then refocus and then you can take the photo. But in certain situations, if you're doing street photography, you really want something that's gonna just be like a center point focus and you don't have to worry about that. And like I said, that's what I did. I just created a center point focus and just used that throughout the entire time. But overall, it wasn't really a big issue because like I said, I didn't really use the intelligent focusing at all. Although I have my pros and cons about this camera, it's still amazing camera. I understand why people, were so hyped about this Leica Q3, particularly this 43mm lens. It's a very great camera. The images come out of it are just tremendously beautiful. I find myself really wanted to take more and just find myself really just bringing this camera everywhere. Even if I was just going to a coffee shop, I wanted to take it with me so I can take photos because I love the way the images were coming out. And I understand why this model has a reputation. When I was in San Francisco, I got stopped so many times with like people trying to ask me about the camera because they know about the camera, they're very interested, they know about Leica's reputation. So they were, it felt like you can feel like, hey, this camera, although it is a niche camera, it has its place in the industry. It has its place amongst the people where people are very like, hey, I know about that camera. How do you feel about it? Like, what's so cool about it that we noticed so far? And the ultimate question is, who's this camera for? Because if you look at the price, you're going to be like, gosh darn it, that's very expensive. I mean, this camera can go. It is almost 7K. That's including tax and shipping, depending what you're doing. So a 7K camera, it's really not for everyone. This 7K camera is, like I said, it is a niche product, but I can see it for street photographers. I can see it for architecture photographers who are, go to city to city. I can see it be used for landscape photography, but I think it's very dominant in street architecture and portrait because it has a very sharp lens, and you can do f2, so you have a good background separation. But you also have the capabilities to do zone focusing on this like you would do on an M6 and do like crazy candid street photography. But like I said, it is a very overall pricey camera, and I don't think everyone can spend $7K on this camera because like it's a lot. That is a lot in general. But it's still a great camera. And if you ever get a chance to rent it, I'd recommend renting it just for a day or two, just to see how amazing this camera is. Do I have an opportunity to buy it? I don't know. It's like I said, it's a lot, but overall, it's a great camera. It's pricey, but it has its reasons to be pricey because it's a Leica camera, you know. I hope this review kind of really summed out like this camera and what was, you know, like what made it really cool, you know, I guess you would say. If you have any comments or questions about the camera, let me know down below. I like making these videos, so definitely like and subscribe. And I think I'm gonna do a video about the hype about this camera to kind of break down why it's expensive. So watch for that coming out. So you'll definitely see it. But anyways, thank you. Hope you enjoy. I'm ready for bed because it's 9 p.m. on my side. So see you guys later.